Hi guys and welcome to Learn Extra Live. It is Maths Lit today and Indy and Haley
Hi,
are with
guys.
you. I like how I talk about myself in second person
Yeah,
or third
absolutely.
person, Indiana. So guys, today we've got an awesome show. We're going over measurement again. I think this is part of the
Third session,
it's the third session.
and hopefully final session.
So
until
tell,
we do
tell us
revision.
more about measurement. Maybe a little mini recap from last week.
Well, last week we did perimeter and area. Well, the last 2 weeks. Today we're going to be doing volume and surface area, and it's going to be great.
It's going to be fun. It's going to
Yeah.
be awesome. Okay, so take
Okay,
your spot,
okay.
and I'll do my
Thanks.
usual thing. Okay, guys, what you need to do is you need to chat to us on facebook.com/Learn Extra. You can also chat to me on Twitter @Learn Extra. If there's anything that you aren't understanding, please post it on the page or tweet us and let us know so we can help you out as we go along. This page is not only for us, it's also for you, so please use it. This is our community. So let's grow it, let's make it bigger, and let's learn more and learn extra. And Haley, I think, take it away. Should we start at last week's numbers?
Started last week's numbers, so let's do it. Okay, so last week's numbers were 15, 1 to 9. Indy, what are today's numbers?
Okay, guys, I know you're not going to believe me, but today we have 15,553 likes on our Facebook page.
That is so awesome.
It's incredible.
Slowly creeping up to that 20. And I really want to be here for that 20,000 for the party.
Want
Sure,
the
we'll have
cake?
a huge party. I want the cake.
Yeah.
So guys, just carry on telling your friends. You know how it works. Right, let's start with today's lesson. So, if I can find, right. Last week, and the week before, we did perimeter. And we did some area. And we did some examples and questions where we included perimeter and area. Today, I want to focus on surface area and volume. So firstly, I'm going to start with surface area and then go into volume. So let's look at our shapes. So starting off surface area, it is the outside of a shape. It is the cardboard that you would actually make a shape up from. So if I look at a rectangular prism, right, I've got a box. I've got a length on the box, I've got a breadth, and I've got a height. Now, if I want to work out the surface area, I'm looking at all 6 sides to this shape. So what I've done is I've actually color-coded this shape, and I have drawn a net. So if I take this box and I actually break it down into its pieces, you will see what I mean. So I have 2 blues. Right, we can see that was our top and the bottom of the shape. Then the yellow is what's facing you and like at the back of the shape, and the greens on either side. So if I look at the net, I've got 2 rectangles that are the same, they're blue, 2 yellow ones, and finally 2 green ones. My length of my shape is still here. I've got the breadth and then the height. So this is the breadth. Okay, now this green piece is, what does this actually represent? That part of the shape, this part here, fits in there. So this is the breadth of the shape. And this part here is actually going to connect with that part there. Let's do that in a different color maybe. Okay, let's try to see the blue. Right, that part there is going to connect with that part there. So that becomes the height. So if I look at each of these shapes, and what color will work? The area of this is length times breadth. Right, the area of the yellow one is length times height. And the green one is height times breadth. So if I had to look for a formula, what do my formulas say? The formula will be 2, because I've got 2 of each shape. And then I've got my length times breadth, that's my blue. I've got the length times height, that's my yellow. And finally, I've got my breadth times height, that's my green. So we put those all into brackets because we need to consider BODMAS and all those funny things. But it's the length times breadth plus the length times height plus the breadth times height, and we multiply it all by 2. You might want to do the calculations where you actually work out the length and the breadth and times by 2, the length and the height and times by 2, which you can do. Let's move on to the next shape. Right, now we've got a triangular prism. So if I look at this, I have my base of my triangle. There's my base. And I've got 2 sides, side 1 and side 2. And I also have my perpendicular height in my triangle. So what I've done is I've color-coded this. This is orange, my side 1, and yellow at the back. So if I draw this net, Right, I've got my two triangles, which are green. They were green in the front. Then I've got my orange, which was side 1 times by the length of the shape. I've got, and it moved. Okay, I'll put it back. The blue is the base of the triangle, the triangular prism. That's my base times my length. And my side 2 was yellow, and that's all of them. So what do we do for this surface area to calculate? We're going to work out 2 triangles plus 3 rectangles. So my equation, let's move it up a little bit, 2 triangles, and that's my formula for the triangle, half the base times the height, plus I want the area of each of these. So this is basically S1 times the length. And this is base times the length, and this one is side 2 times the length. So all I'm going to do is add those 3 rectangles. Now guys, remember, these seem complicated, but you probably will be given the formula to actually do these calculations. So within the question, they will still give you the formula you need. Let's move on to our cylinder. Now our cylinder has a blue circle at the top and a yellow, what do we call these things around a cylinder? Outside of the cylinder. Okay, and if I had to draw a net, I've got 2 blue circles because I've got the top of the cylinder and at the bottom of the cylinder. And I've got a rectangle. If I actually took this shape and unfolded it, it becomes a rectangle. What's important to note with this rectangle is that that's my height, but I'm looking for what is that measurement. Now that measurement actually goes around my circle. So it is my perimeter of my circle. So that purple there is actually 2 pi r. That's because that's the formula for the perimeter. We did that last week. So my formula will have 2 circles, pi r squared, plus my rectangle, which was 2 pi r times my height of my shape, because it's my length times my breadth. So that's where we get that part of the formula. Okay. And don't be scared if you see this formula in a different context, because sometimes they tend to write this as 2 pi r and then r plus h. I've seen it every now and again, it comes up, it's the exact same formula. So just don't be scared if you get a formula that you're not totally familiar with, because as soon as you substitute in the radius and the lengths and the heights, you will get the same answer. Let's move on to some volume. Okay, my rectangular prism, again, length, breadth, and height. What's the volume of this? My volume of the shape is just the length times the breadth times the height. And a triangular prism, well, in this case, and when you've got a shape that's not standard, like a box in a rectangular prism, we think about the common side. So in actual fact, I could give you that volume is actually the area of the common side, and I'll explain that in a moment, common side, times the height. Now, what do I mean by common side? If we look at my triangular prism, this green triangle is common throughout the shape. So if I had to cut this along that line, I would still end up with a triangle. And if I had to cut it further along, I would still end up with a triangle. So my triangle is common throughout the shape. So I need to calculate the area of the common shape, which is my triangle, times by the height, which in this case is actually my length of my prism. So let's remove that. So my formula for volume here is half the base times the height, and then I'm going to times it by the length, or if you'd like, the height of the triangle. So that's what I mean by common side. And finally, let's get to our cylinder. Cylinder, what would be my common? If I cut this, the only way I can cut it so it stays the same is if I cut it along the circle edge, so that I remain with a circle. So my formula here would be my area, moved up a little too much, my area of my common side, which is pi r squared, and times by the height of the shape, which is my h. And that's your formula. And remember, you're going to be given the formulas. So a few things that we need to keep in mind before we start with the questions is you need to be working in the same unit. And always check what unit you actually need to give your answer in, because it's always easier to convert first. So let's put this all to practice. Let's start doing a question. Right. We've got our first question, and our question says, right, Josh is learning the skill of welding. He decides to make money boxes out of rectangular sheets of metal that is 30 centimeters by 40 centimeters. Calculate the area of the thin sheet of metal, and then they've given you the formula. Use the formula, area is length times breadth. So what do we have? Area is 30 centimeters by 40 centimeters, and we can multiply that. You can use your calculator if you'd like. 30 times 40, and we get 1,200. Need a pen for that? Right, 1,200. And don't forget your units. So what were we dealing with? Centimeters. It's area, so it is always squared. Let's see what the next part of our question is. Right. His choice is a rectangular or cylindrical money box, as shown below. The cylindrical money box has a radius of 6 centimeters. Now, what I like to do, whenever I see this, okay, it's been put into your question. But whatever I like to do is whenever I see the radius, I like to write out what the radius is. So we know that the radius is equal to 6 centimeters, okay, and a height of 15 centimeters. The rectangular money box has a breadth of 8 centimeters, a length of 15, and a height of 15. So have we been given all those values? We have. Now I also like to add my L's and B's and to actually help me. So I'm going to make, that's my height, I've got my radius, and then here I'm going to say, well, okay, this is my breadth, this is my length, and that is my height. Just makes it a little bit easier for me to substitute in the values once I've got a formula. Right, the surface area of the circular money box, we can use the formula, and they've given us the formula. Okay, so we need to calculate the surface area. So we're going to say our surface area is equal to, and you can get into the habit of actually writing out the formula. I'm not going to do it right now, but it is good practice. So we've got 2 times pi, and remember pi is 3,14. They're going to ask you to use pi as 3,14. And one of the main reasons they're going to ask you to do this is that we're supposed to be doing everything this year on a 4-function calculator, which means that we don't actually have that pi button. So if you're going to use your scientific calculators and press the pi button, it's not wrong, but it's always a good idea to actually follow the instructions of the question, because then your teachers are a whole lot happier when their memo is the same as your answer. So 2 times pi times my radius, what was my radius was 6, times my height, and what was my height of that was 15, plus 2 times 3,14 times my radius, which was 6 squared. And again, if you're using just a normal calculator, then you can say 6 times 6. So that's not a problem. Right, let's get our calculators out. We're going to substitute this all into the calculator. So I've got 2 times by pi times by 6 times by 15. Now, if you're using a scientific calculator, we can carry on the sum. But if we're not, let's press equals. So we've got 565.2. And let's do the second part. Okay, so now we've got 2 times pi, 3,14, times by 6 squared. So I'm going to do 6 times 6 equals 226.08. And then we're going to add those two, a little bit more space here. So on my calculator, I'm going to add my 565.2, and I get an answer of 791.28. And now it's important. What were the units? We're working out surface area, and it was in centimeters squared. Perfect. Let's move on to the next. So, the next part of the question says, work out the surface area of the rectangular prism. And they give you the formula. And this formula looks different to the one we had. It's got 2 length times breadth plus 2 length times height plus 2 breadth times height. So we could use either one. But what's important is I need to know that's my length, that's my breadth, and that's my height. Especially when numbers are repeated, like in this case, we've got 2 that are 15. We tend to get confused and we're not sure which ones we must do again. So let me use the formula that you were given earlier. That was length times breadth plus length times height plus breadth times height. Let's use that formula and let's get a different color. And we've got our 2 times. Now we're going to substitute. My length was 15 plus my breadth, not plus, times by my breadth, which was 8, plus my length of 15 times my height, which is 15, plus my breadth, which was 8, times by my height of 15. And just substitute one at a time. Just take it easy and just take it slowly and one at a time. And now we can actually do this calculation. And I'm going to do the calculation all at once. In fact, maybe I shouldn't. So 15 times 8 is 120. So that's 120. Now I've got the 2 times. Plus, let's do that one, and that's also 120. 15 times 15 is 225. And now if we add these all up in times by 2, so we can do that in one step on the calculator. So I'm going to add the 120 plus 120 and times it by 2. So what do I get? 930. So my answer here is actually 930, and again, centimeters squared. Okay, so it's important that you put the units in because you could lose marks for not having your units. And it's important that you work neatly and methodically and that your teacher can actually understand what you are doing and to follow your train of thought. Indy, how do you think we're doing for time? Do you think I've got time to go on to the next question?
I think let's take a little ad break.
Let's
That's
take-
okay, yes, guys. I know we all need a bit of a stretch. It is Thursday. That means it's nearly the end of the week. So, guys, get up, stretch those bones, and we'll see you now after the break.